It's a pleasure to be with you. It is January 26th, 2025. This is the Mormon News Roundup, episode number 149, if I am not mistaken. No, 148. I apologize. It's great to be with you. I have a fantastic episode that is on hand for you tonight. We are going to jump right in. Absolutely enormous. A lot of things happening out there in the Mormon news. Can't wait to bring it to you. And I'm going to do that right now, just as soon as I get everything set up for you here. And hopefully we're live here. Sorry if I got a couple of technical difficulties. Everything set up this going. And yeah, this is what we're going to be talking about here today, folks. A lot of things happening out there. How much is the Mormon church actually worth? I just released a short that talked about that a short time ago. We're also going to talk a great deal about American Primeval. I did do a review of that over on the Mormon Movie Reviews channel. It is absolutely fascinating. But of course, every single week, the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is still one of the biggest Mormon news articles out there. 4 shocking things the Mormon wives did on camera that production had to cut. Let's see what's happening with those scandalous ladies over there at the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
4 shocking things the Mormon wives did on camera that production had to cut. Taylor's ex-husband refused to let her 2 older kids be on the show, but only decided this after filming ended. Reshoots pushed the show back almost 6 months. Jen Affleck's mom actually lives with her and Zach, but Jen didn't want anyone to know about it. We're only allowed to record in the kitchen to keep her off camera. There's a recent lawsuit with Hulu regarding Whitney's social media app, Trend Talk. Apparently she hacked the TikTok algorithm with this app and made her go viral. Demi's husband was on The Bachelor, but Hulu couldn't mention it without paying ABC, so they left it out entirely.
It's amazing how much intrigue is out there with the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. It is still one of the biggest shows out there, still generating a lot of headlines. My understanding is that they are in the 2nd season of production. The first season, which was just a couple of months ago, was probably one of the biggest Mormon stories of the entire year. Very salacious, really gets people riled up. People love to watch Mormons behaving badly, and this is absolutely no exception to that. Moving right along, we have a huge episode here. This is one of my favorite Instagram and Twitter accounts out there. It's called The Lord's Newsroom, which is obviously a tongue-in-cheek reference to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints newsroom, where he said the 0-hour church pilot program going great, report says. I love that. Because the word on the street is that the church is testing out 1-hour pilot programs for the church. That's very interesting to me. Of course, this is a parody of that. Let's hear what it says. In just a few weeks, I'm happier, healthy, and more relaxed, says one member of the pilot. I have more time to spend with my family, as well as more time to give service to causes I care about. It's been a real boost to my mental health, not having to kick all my critical thinking to the back of my mind every Sunday. Heck, even my sex life is better now. At press time, members of the pilot were discussing how much of a delight the Sabbath is these days. That is obviously tongue-in-cheek, but I do enjoy the Lord's Newsroom. You should really check him out. He is definitely on Twitter, and he is on Instagram for sure. You know, just a couple of days ago, President Biden, while he was still the president on January 17th, he tweeted out today, I'm affirming what I have long believed and what 3/4 of the states have ratified. That's the 28th Amendment is the law of the land. It's very interesting to me to hear President Biden tweet that out, because the church fought the Equal Rights Amendment way back in the 1970s. And there's a satirical take over there on the Cougar Chronicle, the BYU ultra-conservative newspaper, where he said, we are equally pleased to announce that the family proclamation is now the law of the land. I don't think so, but I do find that to be amusing. The Cougar Chronicle declares the family proclamation is now the law of the land. It guarantees that marriage is between a man and a woman, and the family is central to God's plan. Now, naturally, the family proclamation is not the law of the land. In fact, it is not officially church doctrine. It has not been canonized, and it has not been sustained in General Conference, but parts of it have been incorporated into the church handbook of instruction, which I have argued for a long time is actually more important than the standard works themselves. So in some ways it is church doctrine, but in some ways it still isn't. I do find that to be very amusing, though. Now, I noticed a couple of things this week out here, which was really such a big week. I have a lot to go through here, and that's the number of different ads that the church has been purchasing up in many different locations here. And you will see something that is quite similar in between these particular ads for Mormonism. And I got this off of Reddit. It says, did the Q15 handpick the missionaries to be in the ads? None of them seem like the Apostle Paul. That much is an understatement here. One of the ads says, come to church with us. Another one, are you willing to come to church with us in a week or two? Or the third one says, feel love like you've never felt it before. I can't but help remark that these young persons seem to be highly attractive and, shall I say, fair and delightsome, or is it white and delightsome? I can never remember which. It seems like in order to get the nod for these particular church ads, that you have to have a certain look. Hey, for all those of you out in the live chat, thanks so much for stopping by, starting with Brady the Apostate. I do appreciate that. Look at these ads. I pulled those up, and I have a couple more ads here. You know, if you go onto Facebook Marketplace, you will also see maybe not as curated as ads, because these are not official church ads, but you'll see people with free Book of Mormon on the Facebook Marketplace. And Amanda Dobson says, hard pass to those missionaries. I certainly see those in my Facebook Marketplace from time to time. I do find that to be quite amusing. A couple of other ads here. These, do they really make ads like this? Ads? I know that these girls aren't getting paid, but it's very cringe, and I feel bad for these girls. But is this a new thing, or how long has the church been running ads like this? It seems insane to me to make a TikTok ad with pretty young girls, like in the targeted marketing strategy. Joseph Smith would love it. I'm sure he would very much approve. See, if you look at the church official ads, they all seem to have a curated look. And the ones that are on Facebook Marketplace that are not quite as curated, that are unofficial, seems to be a big difference. Look at these curated looks. Lots of heavy makeup here. Definitely got the, not to stray too far afield here, but kind of like the Alyssa Grunfield Mormon face. This seems to be a very white and delightsome, fair-skinned appearance. That much is sure. Here's a couple of ads here, too. Brady says, I've seen so many Facebook Marketplace ads, too, sending kids out to do free service for strangers in St. Louis. You know, it seems to be a barrage of ads this week. And quite frankly, when it comes to sister missionaries in particular, I am very much worried about the safety of these sister missionaries who are sending out ads to free people to meet up with. It seems like a very, I don't know if you want to call it foolhardy endeavor, but I definitely worry about the safety, especially of the sister missionaries in these particular ads. That does cause me some concern. Here's yet another ad that I was able to see out there from Benjamin Anderson. He said, got this ad on Facebook today, and it's peace in Christ in Provo. Come to church with us this Sunday. Jesus Christ lives and loves you individually. You will feel his love and the peace he offers as you come to church to worship him. Are you willing to come to church with us? And you get a yes or a no. And got quite a few no's out there. These are the type of church ads that I've been seeing this week. It seems to be some kind of an ad campaign, because I've never seen so many ads. And yet here's another one. Again, these are all in the near term here. This one is Venir a Cristo in Los Angeles. Follow Reels. Do you want to learn English? Come to the free English classes. We teach them in a spiritual environment and always end with a thought of Jesus Christ. So, I mean, these are in heavily, mostly Hispanic or Latino neighborhoods, presumably in Los Angeles. And if you want to learn English as a second language, or if you want to brush up on your English, these missionaries teach those lessons. And I was just at my church, actually, just this last Friday, and there was 6 missionaries in there teaching a whole horde of mostly Latino persons English as an English second language course there in the primary room. When I was a missionary, we never had the opportunity to do anything like that. We were supposed to be out there pounding doors, not teaching people how to speak English. How times have changed, but I imagine you do get a lot of people out there who want to take those English lessons for free. Here from Sister Young and Hermana Lanes. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. And yet here's one more ad that I came across just this week at BYU, Idaho. Here we have a $1,000 scholarship for return missionary. If you're a return missionary and you go to BYU, Idaho, you can get a $1,000 scholarship. That's kind of crazy. Brittany the Apostate, Facebook ads are the new door knock. How do I get a no soliciting sign? That could be hard to do. I've heard anecdotes. I was talking to a return missionary not that long ago who came back from when he was doing his mission mostly in COVID. Came back, I guess, a little while ago, maybe a year ago. And he talked about how the futility of these Facebook ads are so stunning. He said that they would spend all day long messaging people on Facebook Marketplace, Facebook Messenger. They would cold message people, and the rates were absolutely abysmal. It was like beating your head against the wall. So no, I don't think that the door knocks are very effective here. And I don't know how to get a no soliciting sign when it comes to online. But Trevor Van Blarcombe says that they seem like they're getting really desperate. Hey, Songs, welcome to the program. Glad that you were able to drop by. Now, here's a couple of other ads that caught my attention in here. Hey, Colch, nice to see you. Appreciate you. If you live in Washington County of Utah, which, by the way, once upon a time, I did live in Washington County. I spent a part of my childhood in St. George, really as part of a foster family. I can tell you a story about that another time, but this is what you get when Mormons lead your state in Utah. I got this on Our Moment on Reddit. I'm spending too much time on Reddit here. Our region's snowpack is currently less than 30% of the average. Call for fasting and prayer. Is this what we really need our government to be asking us to do? Is to perform certain incantations to certain fake gods on behalf of water and rain? I do wonder if that is the function of government. I always thought that there should be a separation of church and state, and that the role of government is to provide essential services, not lead people to waste their time with meaningless prayers. Now, one of the most amusing things about praying for a weather change, it's one of the few prayers that you can guarantee is going to have an answer. Because if you pray for snow, eventually it will snow where you are. And it doesn't really matter where you are because we've got ice ages and other things that take place across the earth. So, yes, praying for a change in the weather is a guaranteed prayer. So, but I question this. Why is the government spending money to try to get people to pray? They should be actioning things in a demonstrable way, not asking for oblations to imaginary deities. A couple of other, I've got a big episode on tap here. A lot of things I want to get through. So we talked about a couple of weeks ago how Peggy Fletcher Stack over there at the Salt Lake Tribune released a huge article called The Dark Days at BYU. And I talked about, I believe it was last week, where I actually spoke to Peggy Fletcher Stack on the phone about that article. It was a pleasure to talk to her. And she said she really thanked me for my I won't say coverage of the article, but just my episode that detailed that. I believe that was the week before last. That was really nice when you get noticed. As my moniker here says, I am a C-list podcaster for life and will never be the vaunted journalist that Peggy Fletcher Stack is. However, the reverberations of that article are still resonating across Utah and beyond. BYU professors must resist being muzzled for the sake of academic freedom and the future of their students. Many of my LDS members and friends have become more opposed to homophobia, sexism, transphobia, and racism in recent years. It would be heartbreaking to see this progress undone for someone after attending BYU. For every semester these policies continue, the number of students hurt by their downstream effects will increase, writes Taylor Cocteau from Layton. That's very interesting stuff here. And let me just read this as well to you. It says, the article by Peggy Fletcher Stack described recent restrictions on the personal beliefs of BYU staff and the administration. In response, professors should either rebel against these changes or leave for other institutions. The article mentions several who have done just this, and I cannot commend them enough. Silent support of progressive ideals means nothing and helps no one. The school's well-respected academic programs are very appealing thanks to their subsidized cost. This is why BYU attracts many young Mormons, even those who consider themselves socially liberal. Hardly. Well, I'll talk about that in a sec. While this crackdown is about weeding out critical professors, it is more about shaping the ideology of the next generation of Latter-day Saints. When these students attended the university, they will see the professors are afraid to bring up certain topics and internalize that fear. They will see this as a criticism of the church that is not tolerated even in academia. Hey, Mormon Satan, it's great to have you by. If you're not, hey, I'm going to be talking about your post here just in a little bit here, Mormon Satan. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And Brittany the Apostate, I firmly believe, branch I firmly believe branch of the CES is strictly another form of brainwashing. It certainly is. Now, as far as this article says that that students, even liberal students, want to attend BYU. Let me just give you my own personal experience about that. First of all, I taught full time or part time for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for 24 years. Most of that time is at BYU Provo, so I know a thing or two about being on campus. I have 2 degrees from the institution, so I would say that I'm well poised to be able to answer that question. And in my own particular family's life, my daughter attended 4 years of seminary, goes to church every single Sunday. She didn't even want to apply to BYU. In fact, she graduated early from a local university here in the Washington, D.C. area not long ago, and has just and is probably going to be attending grad school here shortly. She didn't apply to BYU. Why not? Because she doesn't believe in being a bigot. She's not homophobic. And she knows that BYU's absolute reputation is one in which people who are gay friendly are not tolerated. The idea that BYU is open to liberal students, just for my own family, that's an absolute farce. So once again, everybody, thanks for dropping by. Let's continue on. I have a big show on our hands here. And as we mentioned with Peggy Fletcher Stack with her Dark Days article, it all comes down to this man right here. Clark Gilbert is the man here. BYU, other Latter-day Saint schools will not drift from church governance, leader says. Other Clark G. Gilbert, Commissioner of Education for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, says hiring policy is one way church and schools will remain aligned. In other words, they're doubling down on the same rhetoric that they've had before. And Songs also said that's why she decided not to apply too. Yeah, you're going to lose a lot of liberal students if you continue to prosecute a war on gay students and on the trans community. That's just an absolute fact. And Clark Gilbert here, he said also, he's a General Authority 70 and a commissioner for the church education system. And he held a fireside here just a couple of days ago where he doubled down on his incredibly regressive tactics. And he says, we are going to hold fast to the shall we say, Elder Oaks' vision for BYU. And I really think that the marching orders here are coming from Oaks. They're being channeled through Holland, and then Gilbert is the hatchet man. And I really think that Oaks may be running a lot more behind the scenes than we really realize, because as Nelson becomes less and less powerful, as he becomes more incapacitated, being almost 101 years old, we're seeing the direction of the church really go towards that Oaks very anti-gay policies. And I think that is, I think we're going to see more of that, to be sure. But this is still resonating out there. And this is one reason, for instance, here, if you look at Ben Shalati, see, Ben Shalati is a very popular, openly gay member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and fully active, as far as I know. And he said, I repeatedly asserted my belief that same-sex dating should be allowed on campus. Former Honor Code employee Ben Shalati shares his BYU experience. See, and this is the whole thing here. BYU has gone back and forth between allowing people to hold hands on campus or go on dates with people of the same sex. They keep going back and forth and back and forth. It's a big whiplash for students and faculty alike here. Ben Shalati was supposed to be an ally to all this. However, he left the university, I want to say it was about 6 months ago, as basically, to my understanding, the only openly gay BYU administrator. Ben, an openly gay Latter-day Saint, shares how he was harassed by BYU donors and administration simply for being out of the closet. See, maybe he just didn't, I can't speak to his particular experience, and I don't have any insider information here. But as the only openly gay BYU administrator on campus, it couldn't have been a wonderful, cozy environment for him, regardless of what BYU gives lip service to, that as long as you don't engage in homosexual behavior, then you're just fine. He's saying something totally different. He was harassed, especially by donors. And donors are very important to the entire BYU experience. I mean, the institution is really, propped up by those donors. And most of those donors are very regressive and very, very right wing. As Brady says, it's all about the control. It certainly is. This eventually led to Ben resigning from BYU. Now, Utah Valley University gets to enjoy a new, thoughtful, passionate employee, and BYU gets to wallow in a toxic environment of its own making. Not only, ladies and gentlemen, will you, just like Songs pointed out in the live chat, not only with these hardline anti gay policies will you drive out all the liberal students, you will also drive out all of the liberal staff, all the liberal faculty. And listen to me, Ben Shalati is not a liberal. He wasn't espousing some kind of a radical woke agenda. He was just saying we should be kind to gay students. And he even advocated for, same-sex dating and holding hands on campus. This is hardly this is hardly the liberal agenda coming to BYU. This is just some basic humanity that's given to students. But like we said before, those dark days at BYU are going to get darker. And Brittany says they don't care if you're gay. They care if you act gay, you must conform. But even Ben didn't act on, to my knowledge, he didn't act on anything. He's still single, and he didn't, he had an ecclesiastical endorsement, but he got the boot anyway. So, well, he resigned. Now, the other things that are happening on BYU campus this week, I mean, I've got a big episode here. A lot of things happening out here. Luke Hansen over there on Word Radio, he tweeted this one out, and I got to make a quick comment on this. He said, I'm probably one of the most biased people against the BYU Civics Engagement Office because of my interactions with them while I was there. Yeah, Luke Hansen being biased and bigoted. I believe it. Trust me, I believe it. And he says he has no problem with the following. He says, so there was a Catholic mass that took place on BYU campus just a short time ago. He said, exploring other religions has deepened my appreciation for people of other faiths. It has also made me look at my faith in new ways that only further confirm to me that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the only true and living church on the face of the whole earth. So this is a Catholic mass that took place on BYU campus here just a couple of weeks ago, and it finally hit the news here just not long ago here. And apparently this is only the second Catholic mass that has ever taken place on BYU campus. And somebody is asking, are we sacrificing the unique message of the Restoration in order to accommodate other religious beliefs at BYU? Beliefs that a slim minority hold. And I do wonder about all of this. Listen, I have no problem with any Catholic. What's the difference between a Catholic mass and an LDS service? No difference at all. Nothing. What's the difference between praying to Mecca and having a sacrament service? Absolutely no difference in my humble estimation here. So I don't have any problem if you're going to allow religious services on campus. What's the difference? What's the difference between all of it? Mormon Satan says the difference is wine. That'd be interesting. I wonder if they did serve wine in that Catholic mass, even though the Doctrine and Covenants itself advocates for wine. And the Book of Mormon also talks about as long as you have the wine of your own make, it's not an issue. And of course, Jesus drank wine. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole of where Heber J. Grant basically enshrined the modern conception of the word of wisdom into the church. But here's another reaction on this one here. Thank you for those of you who joined us for the first Catholic mass to ever be held on BYU campus this last week. Oh, I misspoke. I thought that there was another one at some time in the past. The BYU Catholic community felt your support as there was standing room only in the congregation. Thanks to Father Mosher and a bunch of other Catholics out there too. So yeah, I guess it's one of the very first ones out there. Wow. New things are coming to BYU. Who would have known? And Brittany the Apostate, once again, they'll let the great and abominable church, but not let two guys hold hands. That's exactly right. Yeah, that's a good point, Brittany. Bruce R. McConkie would be rolling over in his grave if he saw this. You know what I'm saying? He definitely would. What about this? There's a couple of other updates in here. So we had the church tithing lawsuit that took place this week. Did you catch this one? Like I said, this was an absolutely enormous week. I'm trying to get through it as fast as I possibly can. That's right. The Whore of Babylon, the Catholic Church, used to be banned from BYU, and now it's right up there. So what about the tithing lawsuit that just took place? Well, this tithing lawsuit doesn't belong in secular courts, according to the LDS Church. This is a secular case, plaintiff's counter, based on deceit, not faith, says judge. You don't escape fraud liability just by creating a church. So this is that class action lawsuit that we've been hearing so much about. So the church says, hey, you can't, that these are matters of faith that don't belong in the court. And Hey, Mormon Satan went to the hearing. Yeah, well, tell us all about it. We'd love to hear that. This is what the lawyers for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints fought Friday to fend off what is called a broadside attack on the Utah-based faith's constitutional right to govern their own financial affairs. In the first public airing for a would-be class action lawsuit over tithing, church attorneys tried to convince federal judge Robert Shelby that the legal doctrine of religious autonomy should bar the suit, according to church leaders, of fraud over soliciting donations for charitable causes and then investing those funds in a then hidden reserve account. And as Mormon Satan said, it was really cool, but I think the church is going to win at this level. I am in agreement with you as far as I'm definitely in agreement with you. It's hard to say on this case. Well, I think the best hope for anyone in between this class action lawsuit, the Gaddy lawsuit, and the Huntsman lawsuit, I still think that the Huntsman lawsuit has the best chance of winning, and I don't see that this one necessarily is definitely going to win. That's just my humble estimation. Here, I do have a TikTok to explain this to you. LDS Church hearing over tithing fraud, and I have to give myself a little break here of speaking here.
I just woke up, but I gotta talk about this. Your guide to the high-stakes court hearing facing the LDS Church this week over its tithing and financial practices. This would-be class action case accuses the global faith of fraud. This case is about billions of dollars in tithing paid to the Utah-based church over nearly 2 decades and assertions that the church amassed those funds by deceiving its members. I've been saying this. Ultimately, though, the legal dispute turns on vital principles enshrined in the U.S. Constitution and what the world has learned in recent years about the religion's immense, I think it says wealth. Sorry, I can't see it. It all started in late 2019 when a whistleblower and former fund manager for the church's investment arm, the Ensign Peak Advisors, leaked details to the IRS of a $100 billion+ portfolio built from the tithing that the church officials had worked to keep hidden. David Nielsen also alleged that while piling up immense market returns at Ensign Peak without spending a penny from the reserve account on charity, church leaders diverted billions of dollars to prop up an ailing insurance company called Beneficial Life and help build and develop the City Creek Center in downtown Salt Lake City. Plaintiffs from Utah, Tennessee, Illinois, Washington, and California, I believe there's actually another state, are suing the church and Ensign Peak not only to get back their donations, their tithing, but also to create a class action involving potentially millions of members or former members with similar interests. They're asking a federal judge in Utah to declare the church's financial practices illegal and order a pause on tithing altogether. Could you imagine? While the accountants sort through the faith's finances and the court appoints a special, the button blocks it, I'm so sorry. The plaintiff's central assertion is that the church, while soliciting tithes and other donations for charitable purposes over the decades, instead diverted much of that money to Ensign Peak, where managers hoarded tens of billions of dollars and multiplied the account and a slush fund the faith sought to conceal. They argue their case has been strengthened by a 2023 settlement with the Utah Securities and Exchange Commission, okay, the SEC, that levied $4 million in penalties against Ensign Peak and $1 million against the church for failing to properly disclose something holdings. The church says that tithing funds are sacred and that they never misled anybody over how that money was used. To me, it sounds kind of like weak arguments, but let's hear what else they have to say. Putting surplus donations in Ensign Peak, they say, is simply part of prudent investment, which is what a lot of church members will say. Oh, they are very good businessmen. They are investing, very smart. That it serves the church's long-range mission and that the plaintiffs are seeking to second-guess financial decisions by top church authorities in an unconstitutional infringement of religious liberty. Okay? They point to the church's temple building blitz and ever-growing philanthropic efforts as examples of bolstering religious goals, I think it says. Which I will say, they're building a lot of temples, but are these temples full? Or are these the great and spacious buildings? What are the stakes? The church attorneys want the lawsuit thrown out. If they win, it's proverbial case closed. And the judge's basis for dismissal could set new legal standards on this topic. If Judge Robert Shelby leaves any grounds for the lawsuit to proceed, the church is likely to appeal. The resulting stakes could be huge, with billions of dollars in play, millions of current and former LDS affected, the profound ideas in flux over how faith and the law interact. What do you guys think?
A pause in tithing would certainly be absolutely unprecedented. Boy, that would be really something. But I guess if the judge really thinks that there is an issue here, he would want to pause in tithing since allegedly the plaintiffs are saying that the tithing was solicited under fraudulent circumstances or by fraudulent deception, meaning we thought we were paying tithing to the church and that the church would be using that to alleviate human suffering. Instead, mostly what the church used it for was investments into buy a luxury mall and bail out an insurance company. We have a bait and switch situation here. The judge says that just because you're a church does not absolve you from your responsibilities to tell people the truth about their donations. Now, if the church had just kept their mouth shut about all these alleged things that they were doing with it, they wouldn't have had a problem. But instead, Gordon Hinckley in, I believe, 2003 went out and told people that not one penny of tithing would be used for the Cedar Creek Mall development. That turned out not to be true, according to David Nielsen. So we will certainly be watching this with very careful anticipation. It was interesting that Mormon Satan, that you went to the actual hearings there. I definitely think that Satan belongs in a courtroom, by the way. So that makes a lot of sense here. Bridget the Apostate, who even handles the finances? So much of it is investments. Yes, I mean, the presiding bishopric and the director of Ensign Peak handle a lot of the finances. Is it that the guy that gets up and tells everyone last year the money is good, trust us at General Conference? I mean, that's the church internal auditing. They're not handling the finances. They're just lying to the membership that they've done due diligence. Is there a committee? It really comes down to, according to David Nielsen here, it comes down to really just like the first presidency and the director of Ensign Peak, and maybe that's about it. It's just a few people here that have the complete picture of church finances. Yeah, Caitlin, I believe the first presidency, the presiding bishopric, and maybe the director of Ensign Peak. That's really who knows the complete picture of the church. All the victories go to you, Mormon Satan. You know, the entire concept of Mormon Satan is like a double victory for Satan. Along with all the professionals at Ensign Peak, yeah, all the scammers at Ensign Peak are generally in on the loop as well. So thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Really appreciate you dropping by. We got to keep this train cooking here. We still have those California wildfires. Boy, really a lot of trouble out there. You know, we're not out of the woods yet. There's no doubt about that. And Donald Trump and Gavin Newsom are in a bit of a spat over what's happening out there in California. A lot of nastiness, that's for sure. You see the pictures between Newsom and Trump. They do not look like they enjoy one another's company. That much is for certain. I got this from Rebecca Biblioteca over there at the Good Book Club, where she said, these comments are crazy. An LDS meeting house still standing. So what they love to point to, and this is what everybody does with all of the different religions, is they find some little semblance of something that wasn't destroyed, and then they claim that their imaginary God was looking out for them or their religion or their family. I find these to be incredibly distasteful considering the amount of people who died in these fires. Yeah, yeah, pretty crazy stuff out there. Very crazy. What about this one? Also, Rebecca, also, there's quite a gamut of miracles. You know, theists are always trying to strain at straws, grasp at straws to find these miracles. Thanks for my friend Martine for pointing this out. And obviously, Martine and I are tight. If you watch that last episode about me being banned from Mormon Stories, you'll know what I'm talking about. That's a little bit of an inside joke. But look at what this Church News article says. Miracles can be found everywhere in abundance, says Sister Browning at the Provo Missionary Training Center. Sister Browning is the first African American woman who's been called as not a general authority, a general officer of the church. She says the primary general presidency counselors, varied examples include her teenage conversion. That's a miracle. People get converted every day. What? That's a rather mundane miracles aren't what they used to be, folks. She also said her son's lost retainer was a miracle. They prayed for her son's retainer, and lo and behold, he found it. This is a miracle. This is one of the worst arguments I have ever seen. It is worse than the lost keys argument. And finally, a family facing death in a school shooting, which always, of course, brings up to me, what about the families who died in the school shooting? Where is the miracle there? You can't just assert a miracle. You can't just point to something that could be a coincidence. You can't just provide a bald-faced assertion of a supernatural connection between some event and its unlikely outcome, you have to show causation and demonstrate a connection between these things, which, of course, Sister Browning isn't about to do. And if there are going to be miracles, what about all of those people who died in the LA fires, huh? Where's the miracle for them? Yeah, as Brittany says, a greater miracle would have been having no wildfires. And yes, indeed, that would have been a true miracle. Now, we have a big section here coming up here, folks. American Primeval is still a really, really big show out there. I'm spending a little bit of time looking at all of the different reactions, even though I did last week. This series is really picking up steam on Netflix, released on January 9th, but it is still really, really big out there. In fact, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints released an official statement in response to Netflix TV series American Primeval. And let me just pull that up for you, this complete statement here. See if I got this for you. A recently released series. Okay, here's the, I'm reading you the statement here. A recently released streaming series presents a fictionalized interpretation of events in mid-19th century Utah, while historical fiction can be illuminating. This drama is this drama is dangerously misleading. Oh, church, come on. Brigham Young, Brigham Young, a revered prophet and courageous pioneer? Oh no, is by any historical standard egregiously mischaracterized as a villainous, violent fanatic. Oh my gosh. Other individuals and groups are also depicted in ways that reinforce stereotypes and that are both inaccurate and harmful. Oh my heavens. Brigham Young was a revered prophet and courageous pioneer. Let me correct the record here. Brigham Young was a virulent racist, a complete sexist, a total homophobe, and he endorsed a disgusting polygamy, including the marriage of teenage women. Hard pass. As to the Mountain Meadows Massacre, again, we're reading from the church official statement here. As to the Mountain Meadows Massacre, which the series inaccurately portrays as reflective of a whole faith group, the church has long acknowledged and condemned this horrific tragedy. It has also taken significant steps to uncover and share the full truth of what happened and promote healing. Well, what this doesn't say is that the church didn't apologize for anything. They acknowledged it, sure, but they have not issued an apology for it. Give me a break. I thought Brigham Young, and Song says he thought Brigham Young was accurately portrayed. Yeah, I've watched it. That's for sure. Yeah, and Mormon Satan long since 2007. It only took place in 1857. Only took 150 years to even get an acknowledgement. Give me a break. The problem with such a deceptive, graphic, and sensationalized storytelling is that it not only obscures reality and hinders genuine understanding, but can foster animosity, hate, and even violence. This is particularly troubling when peacemakers are needed more than ever. Now, that's a nod to Russell Nelson's peacemaker talk. But if you want to talk about violence, look no further than Brigham Young and his violent blood atonement doctrine, or his idea that anyone who engages in the supposed sin of miscegenation should have a javelin thrown through them. This will always be so. And Caitlin said, once again, they only care about inaccuracies when it affects them negatively. I don't see them standing up for other groups who are poorly portrayed in the media. You better believe it. And Songs, they think that if they say they condemn it, it disappears. Yeah, right. Exactly. At a time when so many responsible leaders are condemning the division and hostility that dominates so much of our public discourse, we echo the pleas of Russell Nelson. The Savior's message is clear. His true disciples build, lift, encourage, persuade, and inspire, no matter how difficult the situation. True disciples of Jesus Christ are peacemakers. Peacemakers is a choice. I urge you to choose to be a peacemaker now and always. This is always President Nelson's kind of his hallmark here is his entire peacemaker philosophy. And that's probably one of the reasons that he got the Gandhi Mandela Peace Prize from Morehouse College about a year ago. This sentiment, shared across many traditions, is resonating around the world. It is the prophetic message of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a message of peace that the modern prophets have shared, including Brigham Young was not a peacemaker. Let's get real about this. Brigham Young was his rhetoric was incredibly violent. Now, whether you want to say that he was violent as a person, maybe that's going too far, but his rhetoric was definitely extraordinarily violent. And the church also released this as well this week here. They're really trying to stem the tide of the American primeval stuff here. These are complex histories with real consequences, and yet American Primeval takes great liberties, blending fact with fiction in ways that can be misleading. Well, the response here from Mark on X was that it's the Deseret News that takes great liberties, blending fact with fiction in ways that can be misleading. And as Brittany says here, they're just trying to keep their members from watching it. Can't have them start to think for themselves or hear what they hear. Or I definitely agree. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's the Deseret News that's misleading. Now, there's been a lot of takes on Twitter on this, and I got a couple of good ones here for you. Let's start with, once again, Rebecca Biblioteca. Netflix executives consult with Mormon leader on new series American Primeval. Can you see that? On the left, Elder Packer, thank you so much for being one of our consultants on the new Netflix series American Primeval about Brigham Young and the Mountain Meadows Massacre. Do you have any advice for us? And that's the Netflix executives. Well, sure, Elder Packer has a little bit of advice. There's a temptation for the writer or teacher of church history to want to tell everything, whether it is worthy of faith promoting or not. Some things that are true are not very useful. Yeah, if Boyd had been a consultant to Netflix, they would have left out maybe 3/4 of the movie. I do like that. That's funny. We also have Stacker over there who runs a very popular X account. And I know that Kulch mixes it up with him from time to time. And this is what Stack said. Great thoughts on the LDS Church's recent statement on American Primeval from Benjamin Park. This is what Benjamin Park tweeted out. Just like I wish American Primeval listened to their consultants, I wish the LDS Church had listened to their historians. Yeah. So you want to complain here about how American Primeval is inaccurate because they didn't listen to their consultants were like the A-list of Mormon historians like Lindsay Hansen Park and Patrick Mason and a bunch of other A-listers. And apparently they didn't listen to their consultants. Well, I wish the church would have listened to its actual historians instead of having a faith-promoting history and narrative shovel down all of our throats. That would have been nice. So Benjamin Park's got a good point there. I do have an episode coming out about Benjamin Park. I don't know, it's in about 2 months. I actually counted it up today, folks. I have 213 videos fully recorded and in my YouTube queue. I bet you there's not I bet there's hardly any YouTubers out there who have that much content ready to go. So I am a font of content. Let's continue on. Mormon Satan, hey, you're making an appearance, buddy. I didn't know you were going to join the show tonight, but I did include you in the program here. This is according to Mormon Satan. Brigham Young, a villainous and violent fanatic, is egregiously mischaracterized by the Mormon Church as a revered prophet and courageous pioneer. Exactly. And like I've said before, if you're not following Mormon Satan on Twitter, don't let the name fool you. He has really, really good takes out there. So there's my tip of the hat to Mormon Satan. Right. It's Brigham Young. Brigham Young is really misrepresented, isn't he? Yeah, right. And I also have Kulch here as well. Kulch, welcome to the program. Great to see you. And here's we have Kulch on the left here. I only put these little tidbits in here so that these few people will actually tune into the show. And here's what Kulch tweeted out here just a couple of days ago. When they're right, they're right. So you have historical fiction here, which is Joseph Smith looking at these so-called golden plates. And then the reality is where Joseph Smith is sticking his face in the hat. And what Kulch points out is a recently released streaming series presents a fictionalized interpretation of events in mid-19th century Utah. While historical fiction can be illuminating, this drama is dangerously misleading. It's church history that has been dangerously misleading, literally dangerously misleading, not a dramatized TV show. There's no danger in watching historical fiction. There is danger in being sold a bill of goods about your entire life where people lied to you repeatedly about church history. This is an apples and oranges comparison. Give me a break. Okay, or we have Matthew Allen. Again, I'm going with all my favorite X accounts here. The church whines about being mischaracterized, but then they go out to mischaracterize Brigham Young. Dude wasn't about peace and love. Go read what he had to say about interracial marriage. Exactly my point, Brother Allen. Give me a fetch and break. I got more takes here for you. Andy Newman. It's ironic seeing the church that misled me for decades of my life about their history is now taking issue with a fictionalized Netflix series for doing the same thing, only in a fiction show, not a seminary classroom, where you're taught eternal truth. Be honest yourself, LDS Church. Yes, everybody is taking great issue with these church statements here. And as the song says, it's always weird how most of the anti-Mormon lies seem to come true. Yeah, it is. It's kind of funny how it all works out, isn't it? But I'm not done with this American Primeval stuff yet. I got a big show for you tonight, folks. Mormon by association. I have a feeling that the church doesn't care about stereotypes and mischaracterization. If you look at that Book of Mormon reader, you can see how the so-called Lamanites with the dark skin were portrayed. Now the church is up in arms about stereotypes and mischaracterizations after putting out this kind of trash. Give me a fetching break. This I got this from Ex-Mormon Reddit. Depictions that are deceptive. So they redid the headline here and put in the deceptive headlines there. So you can see the ones on the left. This is how we were all raised, or at least I was, about how Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon. You either had him with the breastplate or the so-called Urim and Thummim, or you just had him literally just translating the plates with his finger across the gold plates. Now that's a deceptions that deceive. That causes actual harm. Or again, like the Book of Mormon reader, look at this absolute trash on the right. That Book of Mormon reader should be burnt and thrown into a fire. It's an absolute tragedy that is still on the church's website, by the way. They haven't disavowed that. That's a depiction that deceives. That's when historical fiction does harm. Or how about this one? We have the Book of Mormon itself. We were taught that it was translated from golden plates, but guess what? It was only translated from a rock in the hat. So the church's statement here is totally ironic. And this is, again, the church news, actually the Deseret News here, says that there's tired tropes in American Primeval, and they got it all wrong about Brigham Young. Yeah, right. Give me a break. Matt Groh writes in the Deseret News, quote, "This false depiction inverts actual history and draws on negative stereotypes that both the Saints and the Shoshone were violent peoples." Now, listen, I mean, obviously they weren't... average Latter-day Saints weren't violent, but there was an awful lot of violent rhetoric, especially coming from Brigham Young, that the church hasn't dealt with in any meaningful way whatsoever. They haven't distanced themselves from Brigham Young almost at all, except for, with one minor exception, that the curse of Cain was disavowed. Other than that, everything that Brigham Young taught is still affirmed by the modern church. And what about this one? The real massacre was much more brutal. This is in the Salt Lake Tribune here, and once again from Rebecca Biblioteca. The church is complaining that the Mountain Meadow massacre was inaccurate. But the problem here is that the actual massacre was actually more brutal than what they showed in American Primeval. The church actually ought to be very glad they didn't show the true events of the Mountain Meadow massacre, which were far worse than the American Primeval depicts. And that's exactly one thing that I mentioned in my it was a 7-minute review of American Primeval, is that they didn't show the actual killing of the children. Some of whom, they kept the kids who were alive, who were like, 6 years old and younger. They kept 17 of them alive, as I recall. And they didn't show any of the pioneers shooting 8-year-old girls in the head. It could have been a lot more violent. They actually toned things down quite a bit. And even we have Fair Latter-day Saint out there trying to fact check. And everybody is in scramble mode over the American Primeval series. And there's a whole series up there now on Fair Latter-day Saints that says, this is what's in American Primeval, and this is the actual truth. I'm not going to go through all of these, but there's a whole bunch of them out there. Everybody is in scramble and damage mode over American Primeval. Let me give you one of the best takes about American Primeval over here from Ryan Josiah.
All right, people have been asking me to talk about the new series, American Primeval. I haven't yet watched it, but we need to talk about the statement that the LDS Church released yesterday regarding it, because even I am surprised at just how dishonest the church is in this statement. So I'm going to read through it sentence by sentence and talk about it as I do so. It's titled, "Depictions That Deceive, When Historical Fiction Does Harm." And my ex-Mormon friends are already smiling at that title. A recently released streaming series presents a fictionalized interpretation of events in mid-19th century Utah. While historical fiction can be illuminating, this drama is dangerously misleading. And that's how you know you need to watch it. Brigham Young, a revered prophet and courageous pioneer, is by any historical standard egregiously mischaracterized as a villainous, violent fanatic. Anyone who knows anything about Brigham Young outside of what's in your Sunday school manuals knows he is a villainous, violent fanatic. Yes, he was a great leader for those Mormon pioneers, and he was villainous and violent. Brigham Young was responsible for teaching the blood atonement doctrine that itself has been responsible for who knows how many murders. To this day, every once in a while, they still happen. Brigham Young was responsible for the priesthood and temple ban of anyone with African ancestry. He was the one who taught that they are inherently cursed and forever will be cursed until the sons of Levi do offer up an offering in righteousness, blah, blah, blah. He was the one who taught all that. Brigham Young was the one who gave the order for his Mormon military to slaughter an entire tribe of American Indians in what is now Provo, Utah. He's the one who gave that order. Okay? He was a villainous, violent fanatic, a horrible person all the way around. There is no question.
Yeah, and Ryan has a whole series on his channel that talks about that war, which is kind of a forgotten war in Mormon church history.
For those who have actually looked into history. So I invite you to do so too. Other individuals and groups are also depicted in ways that reinforce stereotypes that are both inaccurate and harmful. And I would have to watch the show to tell you just how inaccurate that sentence is, but based on the rest of this statement, I can guarantee that's inaccurate too. As to the Mountain Meadows Massacre, which the series inaccurately portrays as reflective of a whole faith group, again, it was Brigham Young who taught blood atonement, the church has long acknowledged and condemned this horrific tragedy. I'm going to finish this paragraph and then address that. It has also taken significant steps to uncover and share the full truth of what happened and promote healing. Mm-hmm. Bull fucking shit. That is the biggest bold-faced lie I have ever seen from the LDS Church, and that's saying something. The Mountain Meadows Massacre happened in 1857, where more than 120 innocent immigrants were murdered on a scale of 1-to-1, murderer and victim. Most of the murderers were Mormons. They also hired a few Paiute Indians to help them out. One man, John D. Lee, was held responsible as a sort of a scapegoat. After which everyone else just collectively agreed to zip their lips and stay silent and hope the world just forgets it ever happens. And for the most part, during their lifetime, that's exactly what happened. Until 1950, almost a century later, Juanita Brooks released her book about the Mountain Meadows Massacre. And ever since then, the church has been forced to play catch-up and admit that this did happen and they are responsible. As far as taking significant steps to uncover and share the full truth of what happened, when compared with actively hiding what happened, anything is significant. And I'm not convinced to this day that they're being honest, as evidenced by this statement itself. Going on, the problem with such deceptive, graphic, and sensationalized storytelling is that it not only obscures reality and hinders genuine understanding, but can foster animosity, hate, and even violence. And they should know, because they are the pros at deceptive, sensationalized storytelling. One of the best examples, of course, is A Rock and a Hat, how the Book of Mormon was translated. For many, many decades, the church taught this story of Joseph having the plates on the table that he studied the characters with, maybe with these magic glasses called the Urim and Thummim, maybe even wearing this magical breastplate. Sensationalized storytelling. And then you look into actual history. Anyone who saw the process of what actually happened with the translation of the Book of Mormon confirmed that it was with his magical rock that he found as a teenager while digging a well. The rock that got him in trouble with the law.
That he most likely stole, by the way.
For tricking people into giving him money in exchange for finding these buried treasures on the properties that he never found. But he took their money, all right.
Yep.
So yeah, sensationalized storytelling they are pros at. Going on, this is particularly troubling today when peacemakers are needed more than ever. Again, I'm going to finish the paragraph and then address this. At a time when so many responsible leaders are condemning the division and hostility that dominates so much of our public discourse, we echo the plea of President Russell M. Nelson. The Savior's message is clear. His true disciples build, lift, encourage, persuade, and inspire, no matter how difficult the situation. True disciples of Jesus Christ are peacemakers. Peacemaking is a choice. I urge you to choose to be a peacemaker now and always. All right, Russell, you're the one who taught from the pulpit to your entire church, never take counsel from those who do not believe. You did not mince words. You did not specify that we're just talking about faith and beliefs here. No, you said never take counsel from people like me. How many watching this have divided families that are divided because of Russell's words from the pulpit? He and his friends. Dallin Oaks is another great example. Dallin is directly responsible for the creation of the Family Proclamation document that is the most divisive document, in my opinion, out of all documents in church history. Many, many families have been divided that otherwise would have been great to just love and accept each other as they are. But because of that document, that we pretend is doctrine until they use the word doctrine, and they say it's not doctrine. But so many families are divided because of it. Don't tell me that you guys are peacemakers. Your leaders actively divide in order to keep you in the church. And I have so many friends and stories and people who can confirm that your leaders are not peacemakers. They have caused so much division. They continue to sow seeds of division in order to keep you in the church. And it is frankly disgusting. All right, the last sentence or paragraph here says, this sentiment shared across many traditions is resonating around the world today. It is the prophetic message of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a message of peace that all the modern prophets have shared, including Brigham Young. Bull fucking shit. No, he did not. Again, he's the one who ordered the slaughter of the Timpanogos tribe. He's the one who taught blood atonement. He's the one who taught that Africans are cursed and will always be cursed. And as I'm sharing this, as I'm recording this, I'm realizing why they're being so dishonest here. Because, like I say, it's even surprising to me. This statement, I'm realizing, is not for anybody but members of the church. This is yet another example of pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. They do not want you to know what real history is like. They don't want you to know that the second prophet of your modern church was a disgusting human, inside and out. There's no way around it. So I hope that believing members who are watching this have the courage to look into it yourself. Don't believe me. Don't believe anyone else on TikTok, whether believing or non-believing. Look into it yourself. Trust your gut. Follow the evidence. It is there. Please. For the sake of your family members who have been excluded, who have been divided out of the believing family or friends groups or other organizations, please look into it yourself.
I actually didn't get a chance to watch that prior to tonight's episode because I always just trust that Ryan's going to give us good takes. It's just amazing how close my analysis is with Ryan's. And that's because great minds definitely think alike. You know, we went to the same thing. Brigham Young is a horrible, disgusting, racist, sexist, homophobe, slavery endorsing, genocidal maniac. Okay. Now, he didn't commit a genocide, but he would have if he could have. Okay. So, the church says, oh, he's been mischaracterized. Absolutely not. He has not been mischaracterized. I want to thank Mormon Satan. Thank you so much for your donation. That means a great deal to me. I really appreciate that. From now on, I'm going to make sure that I include you in every single episode going forward. I really appreciate that. But yeah, absolutely right. All of the former, ex-Mormons are all in righteous opposition to this particular statement. And even Mormon Land talked about this. He says that there's a great deal of consternation here because people are wanting to separate fact from fiction in the Netflix series. After some, let me read this just a little briefly to you. After some vivid early scenes, American Primeval, though, is mostly dead on the page. There's not enough excitement in the ideas. There's not enough thought in this storytelling. And this is the New York Times review, by the way. What's left is sometimes orgiastic brutality. I like that combination of words, by the way. No different from the violence in the kind of low rent entertainment American Primeval wants to separate itself from, and the manifold formulas of the Western. So the New York Times is not as big on this particular series. I did enjoy it, and I haven't watched every single episode so far, but I intend to do so. So, that's basically mostly American Primeval here. And Jasmine, once again, she's at it. This was just released just a day ago. She's tackling the Mountain Meadow Massacre, everyone's favorite paid shill for the Mormon Church. Let's see what she has to say about the horrifying true story behind American Primeval and the Mountain Meadow Massacre. Jasmine, what's going on? Let's see what she's got.
True and horrifying story of what happened at the Mountain Meadows Massacre of 1857, where a portion of a Mormon militia or Latter-day Saints attacked and slaughtered over 100 people in a wagon company passing through the area, leaving no one alive except 17 small children. The Netflix show American Primeval features a highly fictionalized homage to this event in order to portray Latter-day Saints as systemically or inherently violent. The truth, however, is much more complicated and honestly tragic. In order to understand this event, you really have to recognize the environment that led to this, which involved generational trauma, threat of war with the U.S. government, fiery rhetoric from church leaders, and tragic miscommunication. Latter-day Saints suffered from trauma. While they lived in Missouri, they were regularly victims of violence, such as at the Hans Mill Massacre, and sometimes they did incite violence of their own in self-defense. Still, according to historian D. Michael Quinn, Mormon marauding against non-Mormon Missourians in 1838 was mild by comparison with the brutality of the anti-Mormon militias. When the Latter-day Saints settled in Utah, the Saints were hoping to live and practice their religion in peace, but conflicts continued, especially with U.S. government officials. These officials would go back to Washington and spread rumors about the Saints, which stirred up even more animosity. And then on July 24th, 1857, word reached the Saints that the U.S. government was sending an army to Utah. The reason for this is President James Buchanan decided to replace Brigham Young as territorial governor with Alfred Cummings, and so sent federal troops to escort him. This is what became known as the Utah War, though it was more of like a Utah standoff. This was also known as Buchanan's blunder because there was never any major battles, and it was started under false pretenses that the Latter-day Saints were inciting a rebellion. Buchanan never informed Brigham Young that he was being replaced or why the army was coming, so Latter-day Saints were just left to speculate and fear. Given the Saints' past experience with violent government persecution, many assumed the worst. They thought that an army was coming to exterminate them, so the Saints began to prepare for war. Brigham Young and other leaders throughout Utah gave wartime speeches, rallying the Saints to defend themselves and encouraging them to store up any surplus grain, guns, ammunition. It was some pretty fiery rhetoric. And then comes the Arkansas wagon train. Hundreds of companies passed through Utah peacefully before them, hundreds would come after, but there was something about this one in particular that led to tragic consequences. Because of the wartime atmosphere, even minor conflicts could be magnified. There are a lot of conflicting stories about exactly what ignited the conflict between the Latter-day Saints and this wagon company, but there seems to have been some tension over supplies. The Arkansas company needed food and supplies for their journey to California, but the Latter-day Saints would not sell to them because they were counseled by their leaders to store up surplus resources in preparation for a potential war. There were rumors circulating that the Arkansas company had poisoned the water supply, and apparently some of the men may have even threatened violence. Some said that they were going to join the U.S. Army to exact their revenge. Apparently, some of them may have threatened to end the mayor of Cedar City, Isaac D. Haight. And one account even claimed that members of the party said that they helped to end Joseph and Hiram Smith and other Saints in Nauvoo and Missouri. Whatever the truth of these stories might be, they probably were just idle threats, but in the charged environment of 1857, Cedar City's leaders took the men at their word. Haight sought permission from the leader of the local militia to use the militia against the emigrants. The militia leader and the city council told Haight to not attack the immigrants, but to let them pass through peacefully. Haight ignored this counsel and hatched a scheme to get some of the local Paiutes to attack the wagon company at the Mountain Meadows. When Haight convened a council meeting in Cedar City to try to obtain approval for the attack, he was again told not to do it. They said, let's instead send a messenger to Brigham Young asking him how to proceed. But before a messenger could be sent, however, John D. Lee and the Paiutes ambushed the wagon company in what became a 5-day siege. And before the messenger could return, events began to spiral out of control. The immigrants realized that it wasn't just the Paiutes attacking them, but that the Mormons were involved. Haight and the others feared word getting out that the Mormons had attacked the wagon train and decided that no survivors could be allowed to escape. However, Haight also felt that he still needed permission from the militia leader to move forward. So once again, he held a council where leaders once again did not approve an attack and instead made a plan to help the company continue on its way to California. This was unacceptable to Haight, who believed that survivors telling of the attack would unleash aggression on the Southern Mormon settlements. So Haight met privately with the Mormon militia leader to press him on this, and while reports of this meeting are conflicting and uncertain, Haight at least believed that he came away with the militia's support for his subsequent action, and this is where it gets chilling. On September 11th, 1857, John D. Lee approached the wagon train under the pretense of offering assistance. He convinced them to give up their arms and let the Saints lead them out of the meadow and into safety. Women and children were first, followed by the men, who would each be accompanied by an armed militiaman. Instead of protecting the immigrants, when the signal was given, the militiamen and some of the Paiutes ended all of the immigrants except 17 small children. 2 days later, the messenger returned with word from Brigham Young telling Haight to not interfere or meddle with the immigrant train, but to let them go in peace. Upon receiving the message, Haight reportedly sobbed like a child, saying, "Too late, too late." This is a tragic and sobering tale, and people understandably wonder about whether the church or Brigham Young ordered this to happen. Based on the documents, I don't think Brigham Young ordered the Mountain Meadows massacre, and I want to show you some evidence that a lot of people online don't bring up. When Brigham Young first heard the news of this event during a meeting, he apparently was so horrified that he stopped the meeting. He called it heartrending. He left his office, and he spent the day in solitude grieving. At one point, he said, "If there were Mormons guilty in this act, it was one of the most dastardly things that have ever occurred, and let them be brought to justice." At another point, he said, "My disposition is such that had I known anything about it, I would have gone to that camp and fought the Indians and white men who took part in the perpetration of the massacre to the death, rather than such a deed should have been committed." In the aftermath, he repeatedly offered assistance to the federal investigators who were looking into this. And when he discovered Isaac Haight's and John D. Lee's role in the slaughter, he had them both excommunicated and said some very strong things about what he thought of their behavior. So based on what the documents can tell us, Brigham Young did not order, approve, or condone the attack. Instead, he was deeply saddened by what happened. And as more information came to light, he excommunicated the main perpetrators. And look, this event was awful. It never should have happened. These men committed this abhorrent act of violence by going against the instruction of church leaders and contrary to the teachings of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Latter-day Saints adhere to the biblical commandment to turn the other cheek, to love your enemies. Our own scripture even teaches that in the face of persecution, we should renounce war and proclaim peace. Referring to the Mountain Meadows massacre, one of the church's top leaders, Henry B. Eyring, said, "What was done here long ago by members of our church represents a terrible and inexcusable departure from Christian teaching and conduct." This is a very simplified history. There is so much to know about this event. So to learn more about that, I'd recommend reading this article, No. 633 at Scripture Central.
It just seems a little distasteful to me that Jasmine is trying to say anything that could possibly have justified this type of violence. Somebody allegedly poisons some water, therefore you are justified in killing them. Somebody supposedly threatens your supplies, therefore you're justified. She seems to be making excuses for the slaughter, which I find to be very distasteful. But anyway, hey, moving right along. Like I said, this is the first time that she's ever addressed it, to my knowledge, the Mountain Meadows massacre here. And that's it on American Primeval here. Let's keep it moving on. Oh, this was out of order. Sorry. A pilot program for 1 hour church, honey. I've been in a pilot program for 0 hour church for years. Sorry, that was supposed to come earlier. Trexmo is one of my favorite. There you go. And as Song said, love your enemies unless they persecute you by asking you to lower the temple steeple. Yeah. Speaking of steeples here, breaking news, the LDS Church does not submit revised temple application for Fairview Temple as planned. Oops. The LDS Church and the town of Fairview entered into a non-binding mediation over the proposed McKinney Temple at the end of 2024. The church agreed to submit a revised temple plan application for consideration on Monday. This did not happen and nothing was submitted. We will see what things happen going on from there. Whoops, they missed their inspired deadline. What's up with the temple? That's very interesting stuff here. And it looks like the LDS Church is not happy that the Fairview United continue to protest the new reduced temple design of 120 feet. Fairview United still feels it is too tall. Quote, the LDS Church will not present a revised temple plan next month. Residents have continued to oppose the temple despite mediation efforts. Melissa McKinney, communications director for the Mormon Church in Dallas, said the church still plans to submit the application, but is taking more time to make sure everything is in place with what make sure everything is in place with what was agreed upon in the mediation. McKinney said the dates for public hearings for the church's application will slide a few weeks until the plans are submitted. So it seems like there's been a small inspired hiccup to the church's plans in McKinney, Texas. Moving right along here, this was amusing here on Ex-Mormon Reddit. Look at this. To prevent shelves breaking, just add more shelves. This is a new topic on the Come Follow Me Unshaken Saints. One of my TBM friends just shared a reel where they suggested having 3 shelves so your shelf never breaks. Problem solved. Yeah, the more shelves you have, the less likely they are to break. Now, I'm going to talk just a little bit about the Donald Trump inauguration, which took place in my neck of the woods. What a picture here, by the way. Donald Trump, the J.D. Vance, Melania Trump looking really killer in that hat. Now, my wife did not like this hat at all. She was not a fan of the hat. However, I was a big fan of the hat. President Biden looking a little old. President Trump taking the reins. Ivanka Trump, Elon Musk right there in the thick of things. We even had Jeff Bezos right behind, Lauren Sanchez wearing an outrageous outfit. What a sight to see. And of course, the biggest thing here was that the church sent representatives to this particular inauguration, which they almost always do. Peggy Fletcher Stack tweeted this out on January 20th. 2 LDS apostles attended Donald Trump's inauguration in Washington, D.C. It's a longstanding tradition for the Utah-based church. What do you think? Is it good for the church to represent the church at political events? It's not a partisan question, just a general one. Yes, I do wonder. We had Garrett, we had the 2 G's attending the inauguration here. I find that to be very remarkable. We also had this as well here. This is a big bombshell that happened because we had the National Prayer Breakfast, which took place right after the inauguration. And Brady said, love the hat. Perfect for defending those kisses. I was a big fan of the hat. I really, really did like this hat. I thought that this hat was absolutely stunning. Great choice. Stole the show. And also, well, quite frankly, Melania's class shined through, whereas Lauren Sanchez's did not. But this is really what caught the headlines here is what happened at the prayer breakfast. This was pretty crazy here. Let's watch this.
I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens.
Yeah, Tiffany behind. You can see that Tiffany right here, which was with Donald Trump's first wife, I believe, Marla Maples. Her eyes are really rolling around here. Look at this look on J.D. Vance's face. Boy, he is not liking this. And look at Donald Trump's body language as well. He does not like what he is hearing here because we have this pastor who's asking for mercy for people. And that is not what Donald Trump is all about. I don't think anyone could possibly describe him as a merciful person. He's well known as his personality as somebody who's ready to fire you. You remember from the Apprentice series, you're fired.
Or have the proper documentation. But the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here.
Where's Lauren Sanchez when you need it, by the way, in this clip?
Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land.
Do you know what it takes for me to find solidarity with a preacher of any religion whatsoever. Do you know how hard it is for me to find someone who teaches religion, which is really all based off of nothing but a collective delusion and a myth? Do you know how hard it is for me to find solidarity with someone in religion? But I am liking this pastor, which is something that I literally never thought that I would ever think that I would say. Let's finish this one up here.
May God grant us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love, and walk humbly with each other and our God.
As you can see Ivanka in the back too.
For the good of all people in this nation and the world. Amen.
Honestly, folks, that is about as good as you could possibly do with religion. You know, I'm not exactly, as you might have noticed from this particular podcast, the biggest fan of organized religion or religion of any sort. But that pastor seems to have done about as good of a job as I could possibly think of. And I do like that she just closed the prayer with an amen and didn't name any particular magic, anthropomorphic, immortal. So I'm liking this pastor about as much as I could. So this is what song says, right? Can you imagine a church that felt inclusive to all? So weird. This is nothing like the Mormon message at all. So yes, this really got the goat here of Donald Trump, which is why I'm mentioning it here. Look at this genuine question. Is the role of a church or a pastor to show honor to political leaders there? And that's what the people are tweeting out. I was there today and this was disrespectful and dishonoring. The pulpit should not be used to attack a leader who was kind enough to ask you to pray for him. It's always right to show honor to the dear leader. Oh, sorry, to a leader, especially when he's with his family and grandchildren. Choose honor. Did you really see this as an attack? You know, the thing about being in the religious space is everything is perceived as an attack. I didn't hear an attack in that particular sermon. I just saw somebody who was asking for some compassion for others, which that's what I thought religion was supposed to be all about. So no, this wasn't an attack on somebody, and this wasn't a dishonor. And Dan McClellan, I have a couple of Mormon reactions to this. This isn't just me talking about the inauguration. I actually have a bunch of Mormon reactions to this. So we're going to keep it Mormon focused here. Let's start with Dan McClellan, who always has a bunch of good takes here. Hey, Maven, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on here. Dan, dismissing empathy as sin and advocating for hatred of others because their empathy threatens your petty and naive right-wing authoritarian identity politics is bafflingly stupid, but par for the Christian nationalist course. These doofuses need to grow the hell up. Why is it that Dan is so gosh darn smart? You know that? What can I say? I'm a big Dan McClellan fan. Can't get enough of him. He does run a live stream every Sunday night, by the way, which usually ends right before this program. But anyway, let's see here. As Song said, asking to have mercy on others is now an attack. We live in strange time. Yes, indeed. And see, this is just an empathetic response from this particular pastor. I didn't have a big issue with it. But Donald Trump, he did. Look at this. I got this clip here. He responded to the pastor here as they were walking away from the national prayer service. Let's hear this. Let me see if I can get this going for you. Let's see what Donald had to say about that after he walked away. Just a short time later, they caught him kind of on a hot mic.
Mr. President, what did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the?
What did you think of the sermon?
What did you think? Did you like it? Did you find it exciting? Not too exciting, was it? I did think it was a good service. No. Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
They could do much better.
I'm just going to play that one more time for you in case you missed that. One more time.
What did you think? Did you like it? Did you find it exciting? Not too exciting, was it? I did think it was a good service. No. Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
They could do much better.
Thank you, press. Inside. Thank you.
It was, so let me get this straight. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't a good service, and they could do much better. That is so Donald Trump. That is so Donald Trump here. Got a couple of other takes from this prayer service. This is from Andy. This, again, he's an ex-Mormon. Be merciful and be empathetic. Wow, listen to that lunatic rant here. This is Laura Ingraham here. Listen to this here. Ingraham. Trump lectured by a woke bishop. Heaven forbid. Hey, Gene, welcome to the program. Glad to see you on here. Typical narcissist response. Let's see what, I got a couple of other reactions here, including from Laura Ingraham.
President Trump, Vice President Vance, and their families attended the National Prayer Service. It's a tradition after the inauguration, and it happens at the Washington Cathedral. But rather than a Christian service about God and country, they were forced to listen to the rantings of a lunatic.
Rantings of a lunatic? That didn't sound like much of a rant. That didn't also sound like lunacy to me.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now.
Have mercy on the people in our country who are scared. That's the rant of a lunatic. This is Bishop Budd from Episcopal Bishop of Washington, D.C. Didn't seem like much of a rant here. Didn't seem like much of a lunatic. Seemed like somebody who was trying to be empathetic in her own way. As far as religion is concerned, I think that's about the best you're going to be able to do. I do have yet more reactions here. This is Republican Mike Collins here, who says the person giving this sermon should be added to the deportation list. This is our members of Congress here who said that a bishop who asked for some compassion and mercy for people who might be downtrodden or might be facing challenges should be deported. Well, the problem here is that Bishop Budd was literally born in New Jersey. So we're deporting American citizens because they wanted some empathy. That is ridiculous here. Sir Edward, thanks for coming to the program. Every accusation that comes out of Laura's mouth is a confession. Take me down. This is crazy. There's craziness here. Look, folks, I can't put this on my bumper sticker. I don't care. As any professor of religion really dabbles, in my opinion, all of religion is built on nothing but a house of cards. So I can't put this on my bumper sticker here. But if you do, I won't criticize you for it. I'll just put it that way. I can't go that far. But yeah, I'm seeing these out here. She seems like a pretty compassionate person. And I can kind of get behind that here. And this is they asked her later on here. They said, Donald Trump took issue with your comments here. And she says, well, I'm not going to apologize for asking for mercy for others. Even though he lashed out at her, saying that she was a radical leftist. And she's not very, and he later on said that she was not very good at her job. Trump said that she brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way, and he demanded an apology from her. But she said, no, sir, I'm not going to apologize for asking for mercy for others. You don't see too often women sticking it to Donald Trump, even though I bet that there's a lot of women who would like to. So I do find this to be very remarkable here. And again, Dan McClellan, where he's back at it. Speaker Johnson. This is, first of all, Speaker Mike Johnson tweeted this out. Bishop Budd hijacked the National Prayer Service to promote her radical ideology. This was an opportunity to unify the country in prayer, but she used it to sow division. Well, Dan McClellan handles Speaker Johnson as well. Speaker Johnson once claimed that if you wanted to know his worldview, just look in the Bible. Here, the speaker makes clear that that was a lie. A bishop preached a sermon and pleaded with the president for mercy, and a bunch of politicians are throwing a hissy fit about it. Pathetic. Dan has mastered the art of the snark, and that's why his tweets get like 40,000 views and mine get like 40. And Brittany said, I don't believe in Christianity, but I do believe in Christ-like forgiveness as being a good trait, and she definitely exhibits it. Yeah, perfect sum up there. Absolutely. And Jesus ranted like a lunatic similarly. Thanks, Gene. And here's a couple of other ones here. This is a tweeted out Mike Lee. Again, Latter-day Saint Mike Lee. What did he have to say about the National Press Club or National Prayer Breeding? National Prayer Breakfast. Well, this is what Mike Lee tweeted out, who's one of the most prolific tweeters of all time. He said that a woke Bishop Budd brags about her political priestcraft. Who else found her sermon highly condescending and offensive? Jesus didn't speak to people like that, and neither should she. And people tweeted out, "Well, what Bible does Mike Lee study? I mean, what Jesus does he follow?" That's a good question here. Bishop calls out Trump during prayer service. Have some mercy. I'll bet he did. By the way, Mormon Satan, I'll bet he did. See, here's the comics that go along with this. Like I said, I got a lot of slides to get through tonight. What can I tell you? This is the perfect for me. The intersection of faith and politics. I love this stuff. I just eat this stuff up. This is I spent too much time on this. This is from the Salt Lake Tribune here. We have Donald Trump here, the Orange Oracle, screaming radical leftists, and Jesus, blessed are the merciful, which is basically all that she said, right? Seemed like a pretty decent Christian message, in my opinion. If you're going to give, that's the best. I don't know, Bishop Budd there is kind of like the best of Christianity. You know what I'm saying? And this is what Sir Edward, what does Trump know about sound theology or homiletics? He doesn't know his ass from his elbow. And Chief Dixon, this week I am not officially, this week I'm not officially resigned from the LDS Church, but all religion. Gotcha. Yes, the Orange Oracle. Congratulations there, Chief Dixon. And Trump is furious because as Bishop Budd can move, see, this is the funny part. Trump's furious because as a bishop, Bud can move as far as she wants diagonally, but as a Russian pawn, he can only move one square at a time. Get it? Bishops, chess, moving diagonally, Russian pawns, one square at a time. That's obviously just the joke there. But look at the look on Trump's face there. That is priceless. He has a look of supreme hatred. And look at the bishop here. Boy, she is happy as a clown. I love this stuff. This is just so great. Stacker also weighs in here. Let's take a moment to put aside politics and consider what Bishop Budd did and how it was similar to prophets of old. This is more comparable to the voices of real prophets, a voice speaking truth to power for the least, the poor, the disenfranchised, the stranger in our land, to speak against the rulers and to counsel the rulers with hard words. This style is the echoing voice of every prophet from Amos to Malachi, from Jeremiah to Isaiah, and the Son of God. This is why prophets of old were stoned and crucified. After the speech, Trump said it was a lousy service, and one Republican congressman said that the preacher should also be deported. Whether she gets it right or wrong politically, she echoes prophets of old, and that took serious guts. And see, Stacker is active LDS, and also Jacob Hansen of the Thoughtful Faith. He said, Progmos, they did it. They restored the church of your dreams. How exciting. No more homophobia, no more patriarchy, no more transphobia. And you can finally see women holding the priesthood. Of course, he is speaking tongue in cheek. We're just about wrapping things up here, folks. A couple of other political things. Congratulations to Marco Rubio, the first Mormon Secretary of State. And he's absolutely right about that. Marco Rubio is a Mormon. And I actually released a short about that a couple of months ago. Let's play that for you.
Time you were raised.
Sorry, let me back this up here. Here we go.
One element of the story also is that for a time you were raised as a Mormon. I think most people didn't know this. How many Latino Mormons do we have in America?
I don't know the answer to that. I was 8 years old, and obviously when you're 8 years old, you do what your parents tell you to do, which is, by the way, one of the reasons behind the DREAM Act, right? And behind the concept of the DREAM Act, when you're 8 years old, you go where your parents take you. Right. Our parents took us from Miami to Las Vegas and back, and it's not something we hide from. I mean, it's not. The bottom line is it was an episode in our life when I was very young, and we've not, it'll be more fully discussed in the book. You have to buy the book.
I have to buy the book. But you are not a Mormon now.
No.
One element of the story.
See, that's the thing, is that Marco Rubio, he was baptized when he was 8 years old. Did he actually go through the process of having his name removed? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that he didn't. Now, I don't know that for a certainty, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Marco Rubio is still technically a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which means that he's the first Mormon Secretary of State. I found that to be very interesting. It's songs. Oh, so let's deport him. Yeah. Songs, you're going to get us in trouble here. I appreciate you stopping by here. That's no problem. Congratulations to Marco Rubio. Yes, Rubio was reportedly baptized in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as a kid, but was not active very long. Identifies as a Catholic now. Please don't take it too seriously. That is probably solid advice, but that's not going to stop me from taking it seriously. What can I tell you, folks? Now, yes, I already played this. Sorry about
One
that.
element of the story also is that for a time you were raised as a Mormon. One element.
Sorry about that. Now, the Trump is renaming the Gulf of America from the Gulf of Mexico, but somebody posted this one out. Instead of the Gulf of America and the Gulf of Mexico, we should rename it to the Gulf of Enoch. Doesn't that have a nicer ring to it? I think it definitely does. Sorry, this episode is really random out there, folks, but what can I tell you? Also, this week, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was rated as one of the top places to work. Having been a former church employee, I can tell you all about that, but maybe there's more than meets the eye to this. What can I tell you? We have cults. See, this is what's tweeted out. Cults don't end up on lists of best places to work. I guess the Mormon Church is not a cult then, coming in 8th on a spot out of 100 that made the list, and the only church represented. So number 8 here is the church is one of the greatest environments to work in. Environment is great, work-life balance is awesome, satisfying work subject, and great benefits. And Ron Jorgensen tweeted this out, had a little bit of a response to that. He said, not many employers can get away with convincing employees that they have to give 10% of their paycheck back to their employer as a mandatory condition of their employment. They also get lower pay to begin with. What kind of employees tolerate those conditions? Oh, yeah, one's brainwashed by a cult. Also, saying anything critical of your company leadership can get you fired, excommunicated, and shunned by your family. So be sure to keep sweet. And that's one of the things. It could be artificially and high considering the amount of the type of people that end up working there. Hey, some guy, thanks for the program. Great to see you in here. Sup community, love you guys. Glad to know there's others out there in similar shoes, feeling burned by the church, trying to heal. Appreciate you stopping by. Is the church really one of the best places to work? I can tell you, having worked for the church for a long time, that is not my personal opinion, but I do respect those who think otherwise. A couple of other things to take us out of here. This was tweeted out and really made the rounds this week here. Somebody said, I'm at my son's church basketball game, and the team he is playing is an all-black African team. I asked the guy in the ward what was going on, and he said that the church has a refugee ward in the area. What the F? The LDS Church is complicit in the invasion of our state. It must be called out. So, yeah, this is the especially anti-black racist attitudes of a lot of Latter-day Saints. Now, I can't confirm this, but I can tell you for a fact that there is a lot of racism that still remains in the church. And people, even though the church's message is generally good on immigration, or shall we say at least not bad, a lot of people look at people who are not like themselves as quote unquote invaders, and it should be called out. What I find to be very remarkable is just this week, I was actually at my stake center playing ward basketball against a team with a lot of people from different races, different backgrounds, playing basketball in my own stake center, which really took me back to the time, by the way, when I was a missionary not far from here, playing basketball in that same stake center almost 30 years ago. Brings back a lot of memories. And believe me, we didn't have anything like this hateful rhetoric right here. And there's a couple of reactions that go along with that. This kind of bigoted, unchristian public response to fellow members of the church should result in disciplinary action. This is what happens when politics becomes your God. Absolutely terrible. Caitlin, good on the active member for calling it out. Yes, this is absolutely dreadful, absolutely reprehensible. And as Song said, invasion of your state 150 years ago, that was Mexico, right? I mean, the pioneers invaded Mexico 150 years ago. So the irony is thick there. And here's yet another one here from Bonky Expo Musings. Mormon Church gives 11-year-old boys the power to act on behalf of God because they're called and chosen. Eventually, those 11-year-old boys become adults. Oops. This is a real bad look, but it was definitely making the rounds. Did you also see this? Again, this is kind of a random episode here. This is what somebody tweeted out here. Uchtdorf's temple recommend signed by the current first presidency. See, if you zoom in on Dieter's temple recommend, it's not signed by his local bishop. It's signed by the first presidency, and Rebecca Biblioteca pointed this out. That what are your thoughts on the idea of a never expiring temple recommend that general authorities and the Q15 get? It literally never expires, and they never have to have any kind of interview to assess worthiness. Is this the second anointing in action? Are they untouchable and unaccountable? I am deeply offended by the idea that they have temple recommends that never expire and that are not sworn off on by their local bishops. They should be subjected to the bishops in Zion, just like the rest of us were. When I was a BYU faculty member, I had to go before my bishop regularly. Why don't they have to do it? It's a rules for thee and not rules for me. There is no accountability in the senior leaders of the church. There is no bishop who can hold them accountable. There's no one on this earth that can hold them accountable. It's an absolute tragedy. So no, I'm not in favor of that. Did you also see this article here? I've got a lot of articles to go through. This is going to be fast and furious. What can I tell you? There's 42,000 acres of farmland sold to Mormon Church for almost $300 million. An all-cash deal of $289 million has been finalized with nearly 42,000 acres of farmland across multiple states. This is an all-cash deal. 46 farms sold to Farmland Reserve, an entity of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This is a huge purchase, absolutely enormous here. Just happened a couple of months ago here. 46 farms sold. $300 million. It's an internally managed real estate company that owns 140,000 acres. That's who the church got it from. Acres of farmland across 15 states, makes loans to farmers secured by farm real estate. The company went public in 2014. This is just an enormous purchase here. Paul Pittman, the executive chairman for Farmland Partners Incorporated, said the recent sale included multiple tracts of land across 8 states: Arkansas, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, Oklahoma, North Carolina, South Carolina. They were predominantly grain farms as well as soybean cotton farms. Wow, the church is really shelling out the dough for all of this real estate. And this will definitely be used for profit to lease back to farmers, not generally to grow food for people who are hungry. I'm running a little short on time here, so I'm going to skip this next article and get us out of here. Okay, here is a week summary here, a screenshot from the ldsblogspot.com that I came across this week. Looks like the church has had a couple of tough last 2 years of having to shut a bunch of stakes down. See, this is the number of discontinued stakes across the church for the last few years. And look, back in 2003, they only discontinued 1 stake. In 2004, 3. But as you can see, the number of discontinued stakes seems to be on an ever increasing slide forward, up to 11 discontinued stakes in this year alone. And Ron Jorgensen points this out, that even though the church created in 2024 a total of 17 stakes, so they only had a net gain of 6. So, I mean, for the entire church, you only had a net gain of 6 stakes. That is abysmal. And also, if you consider the fact that the church's stakes now are considered much less, a stake now only has 2,000 people, whereas it used to have 3,000. That was changed last year. So the church grew in stakes last year, only 6 stakes. That's 12,000 people. Do you understand how small that type of quote unquote growth is? That is abysmal. See, the church's numbers of the converts that it has can be inflated, and we don't really know the accuracy, but the stakes, I think, are a far more accurate indication of church growth, and that is an abysmal level of growth. Okay, going out of here, did you catch my episode this last week? If you didn't, about how I got banned from Mormon Stories podcast community, that's not a clickbait. That actually happened. I do like this thumbnail, by the way. If you didn't catch that episode, you need to go back and watch, because I have been banned from Mormon Stories despite my sparkling personality and my lovable persona. I just can't believe that this happened to me. This is a low point in my podcasting journey. I'm not going to get into it tonight, but you need to go back and watch that episode and see if I really am being persecuted, or maybe it's all in my mind. I don't want to spoil it for you in case you haven't seen it. I also released just this last week, Please President Help Me, the complete anthology of Rob Tobler. This is such a good episode. If you haven't watched this content, it's worth watching. There's no doubt about it. It's a 4-hour episode. I know that is long, but trust me, it is well worth it. Go back and watch that. Coming up on Tuesday, I'm going to be releasing this episode here called I Have a Creepy Stalker. I definitely do have one, and it is definitely creepy. And I'm going to release this episode on Tuesday. And I'm going to need your help on what I should do with this cyber stalker. I also released this last episode here about people who debunk Mormonism. Oh, Cliffy, that's a fun episode. And tomorrow night on the Mormon Movie Reviews, we will be reviewing Saints and Soldiers. This is a pretty good movie out there from somebody who is a veteran myself and who has reviewed a number of Mormon movies. I am in a unique position to give you the review of Saints and Soldiers like no one else on this entire planet can. So that will happen tomorrow night. I want to thank some of the patrons, people that I have out there. I have Royce, RMW, Elizabeth, Orson, Carol, David, Blaine, Anthony, Brent, Colette, Michael, Eric, and Sophronia. And for the YouTube memberships, I want to thank Starla, Jeff Banks, Garrett J, Emmerich, Dave Summers, and Lee Mortensen. I want to thank all of those people so much for making donations to the Mormon News Roundup. Appreciate that, folks. That's it. That's all I've got for you. An hour and 40 minutes. It's been a heck of a week out there in Mormon news. We're going to bring it all to you as we do each and every week. I have not missed an episode in 3 years of the Mormon News Roundup, and that is really saying something. I also release news shorts every single day at noon and at midnight on the Mormon News Roundup. 2 shorts every single day, plus an episode every night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or at least 3 episodes every single day. And I have not missed a day of posting on this channel in over a year, 365 days in a row without a single day without new content on this channel. I am the king of content. I am the king of the Sons of Provo. I am the diddly whack Mac Mormon Daddy, and I am talent on loan from Kolob, and most importantly, I am inevitable. Always think celestial, and remember that no unhallowed hand can stop this podcast from progressing. So long, everybody. I can figure out how to end this. Okay. Try to figure... where's my background here? Trying to end it, but I can't. This is embarrassing. Where's my button?